You know what a glow-up is, right? Is when something gets this massive upgrade and just suddenly becomes a total star. Well, what if I told you that hundreds of years ago, a musical instrument had one of the most epic glow-ups in history? It basically leveled up from a side character to the main event.
Okay, I know that sounds a little random. What could your super high-tech smartphone possibly have in common with a flute that's like 300 years old? Well, the answer is actually way cooler than you might think.
That's right. They both had a game-changing glow-up. Think about how your phone went from being this brick that could only make calls to a little computer in your pocket. Well, the flute went through a very similar massive transformation that took it from just being in the background to being a full-on star. And that's what we're going to break down today.
To really get just how huge this change was, we've got to rewind. And I mean way, way back. We're not talking about your parents' old MP3 players. We're talking ancient history. So, the flute is one of the oldest instruments on the planet. I mean, it's like the beta version of wind instruments. For thousands of years, people were making them out of whatever they could find. Animal bones, pieces of wood, even ivory. They were around, but they weren't exactly topping the charts. But then, this period called the Baroque era came along, and everything changed. This was the flute's big version 2.0 launch. So, what did this new and improved flute actually look like? Come on, let's check out the specs, almost like we're unboxing a new piece of tech. Okay. Look at this comparison. Think of the Baroque flute like a classic retro game console. It's simple, it's made of wood, it has a softer, kind of mellow sound, and get this, it only had one key. Now the modern flute, that's your PS5. It's made of shiny metal, has a super powerful, bright sound, and it's covered in all these high-tech keys to make everything easier. The difference is just massive. And that one single key, that is so important. Playing complicated music on this thing was like trying to win a fighting game using only the jump button. It took an absolutely insane amount of skill and precision. You couldn't just rely on the tech, it was all on the player.
So with this new design, even with its challenges, the flute's whole role in music just completely flipped. It went from being just another instrument in the band to being the lead singer, grabbing that spotlight.
And you know that every new trend needs its influencers to make it blow up, right? Well, the Baroque period totally had its own flute superstars. And these people weren't just players, they were composers and teachers who built the flute's rep from the ground up and showed everybody what it could really do. I'm talking about guys like Johann Joachim Quantz. He literally wrote the book on how to play the flute. It was the ultimate strategy guide. And then you had absolute rock stars like Michel Blavet and Pierre-Gabriel Bouffardin, who were so good they were playing for kings and queens. These were the OGs who made the flute cool.
And hey, when you've got a star instrument, you got to give it some hit songs to play. Composers started writing tons of music specifically for the flute. One composer, George Philipp Telemann, created a whole playlist of over 100 pieces for it. The instrument finally had its own music library.
Okay, so you've got this one-keyed flute and a bunch of new music. How did players actually make it sound so incredible? Well, they had a special toolkit of techniques.
This really is the big question, isn't it? If the instrument itself was so basic, where did all that complex, beautiful sound come from? The secret? It all came down to the player's own skill. It was all about adding flair. Since they only had that one key to mess with, players had to get super creative. They used techniques like trills to build excitement and something called articulation to change the mood of a note. But the real secret weapon was ornamentation. Think of it like adding a cool filter or effects to a video. They toss in all these extra decorator notes to the main tune to make it sound way more expressive and interesting. It was all about showing off your personal style.
All right, let's put all the pieces together and do one final face-off. The classic Baroque model versus the new modern release.
This chart just breaks it all down perfectly. The Baroque flute was wood and had a conical shape, so it was kind of wider at the top and got narrower, which helped create that soft, mellow sound. The modern flute is metal and a straight cylinder, which helps give it that powerful, bright sound that can fill a giant room. But the biggest difference, for sure, is the skill. The Baroque flute was all about that precise fingerwork, while the modern flute, with all its keys, offers a ton of mechanical ease.
But here's the most important part. Without the original, you never get the new release. The Baroque flute was that crucial first step. It proved that the flute could be a serious solo instrument, and it inspired composers to write all this incredible music for it that we still listen to today. It really did pave the way for everything that followed.
So, if you take just one thing away from all this, let it be this.
The Baroque flute's epic glow-up wasn't just a tech upgrade. It was about incredible musicians taking a simple instrument and, through pure skill and creativity, giving it a powerful new voice that could finally take center stage.
So now you know the backstory. The next time you hear a flute, maybe in a movie score or a pop song, take a second and really listen. Ask yourself, am I hearing that powerful, bright modern remake, or am I hearing the softer, mellow voice that the classic original that started this whole revolution? Something to think about.